Okay, today I am reacting to why American companies usually fail in Europe. I never react videos. I love reacting to these type of ones. If you have any videos you want me to react to, put it into comments. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video.
On the 30th of December 1997, America's largest grocery chain, and at the time the world's largest company, Walmart, opened its first store in Germany. At the grand unveiling, the company spokesperson announced this as the first step to taking the continent. But just 9 years later,
I would say one of the main reasons, just in my opinion, obviously, is because culture differs. It's like how Starbucks failed in like Australia, basically how Taco Bell failed in Mexico, I'm pretty sure, or Italy. It's because the cultural difference. I would say it's the main bit, but like in Australia, there's good coffee culture, so something like usually pretty good coffee culture where it isn't usually like sweet drinks, like a basically sugared up iced coffee basically isn't very common in Australia. Most people prefer like a hot coffee, a cafe style of coffee. So it's obviously going to do pretty bad in Australia. And with Mexico or Italy, wherever they've decided to go, the food culture there is pretty strong about pizzas and basically tacos and stuff like that. So it's obvious that Domino's failed in Italy. Yeah, I don't know where. I think didn't Taco Bell fail in Mexico? I'm pretty sure then. It was one of those two. I know pizza failed in Italy because the pizza there was average better than Domino's, and like the different types of pizza, like that's American style pizza. Italy's more just like the marinara type of pizza. I forgot what it's called. Those type of pizza. So it's just a cultural difference. Plus, I would say just the communications and the hype difference. And plus, there could already be a store like that. There could be basically a Walmart for Europe, basically, which another one's going to pop out of nowhere. Is it really going to be much better to fit the consumer of Europe that the other company has specialized in for basically 60 to 70 years?
after expanding to 85 stores across Germany, Walmart seized all its European operations, reporting losses of more than $1 billion.
Jeez, okay.
This was just one example of countless massive American companies who have tried to conquer Europe and failed. Staples tried in 1998, Home Depot in 2001, and even Best Buy in 2010. All of them failed. So what was it that they were doing wrong? After all, they came from the land of capitalism, had large budgets, and enough experience to crush the competition. Yet almost 9 times out of 10, they failed.
A retail giant is closing stores. Walmart plans
I would say because of cultural difference, I'd say.
to shut down 269 stores. Best Buy is laying off thousands of workers, even though sales there are soaring.
In 2023, European customers spent more than $9 trillion,
Jeez,
making
okay.
the EU the second largest consumer market in the world, behind only the United States. To most people, this didn't really come as a surprise.
Yeah, it's not really. Europe is very big and pretty well developed, like really well developed, and usually like has a lot of people live in Europe. Like, what percent of the population lives in like European area? Let me check that. Okay, 9 to 10% of the world's population lives in about Europe-ish. That's pretty high, isn't it?
After all, just like the US, multiple European countries rank among the wealthiest and most developed on the
Yeah.
planet.
Switzerland
And with
is, I'm
similar
pretty sure.
populations and similar-sized economies, you'd be forgiven for thinking Europe and America basically run the same ways. But in many ways, the two blocks couldn't be further apart. In 2023, about 700 million people lived in Europe, but only about 10% of them spoke English as their official language.
Really?
Home to over 40 different languages, Europe is vastly different
Oh,
from the
true,
US.
yeah, it makes
While
sense.
something like language may seem trivial, this
But there's also a cultural difference with the language difference. Like France has more of a French culture with stuff like that. Russian culture is different. Like there's so many cultural differences in Europe that I would say making a one for all store for just like putting down the exact same store in Europe, every part of it's probably going to do pretty bad because the cultural differences, what people like buying there would be slightly different.
difference is just one of the many symptoms of something deeper. Something that explains why American companies struggle in Europe. In the 1960s, Dutch psychologist Geert Hofstede set out to answer a simple question. Why do people from different countries behave so differently?
Cultural differences, how they grew up and raised, how they acted. It's just a big cultural difference. How the parents were raised, how they raised. It was just so
And by
different.
1980, That work became known as Hofstede's Cultural Dimensions, a framework for understanding how culture shapes behaviour,
Yeah.
broken down into 6 key dimensions. One of these dimensions, uncertainty avoidance, measures
That could be it. Yeah, people are like not sure about American bought stuff. So it's the same thing I'd say like some people use. I think it's stupid how some people, it's only that certain type of people that will refuse to buy anything from China because it's from China. This is probably like a little bit different from that, like unsurety of the quality from America. But it's like that with some of the people. You've met one of those people before. They just refuse to go to buy something that says made in China on it because it's made for China. But they don't realize their phone was basically manufactured, all the parts were manufactured in China anyway. So
how comfortable a society is with unpredictability. And this is where things start to go wrong for American retailers. In the US, uncertainty avoidance gets a score of about 46. This
Yeah.
means Americans are generally more relaxed about rules, comfortable with experimentation, and okay figuring things out as they go. American companies also tend to operate the same way. They test things, pivot quickly, and then adapt on the fly. Some European countries like the UK also fall into this category, but move a bit to the east and that picture changes fast, with countries like Germany scoring as high as 65.
Really?
Meaning they prefer things spelled out, standardized and formal. So when American companies show up with their "we'll figure it out as we go" approach, German consumers often find this disturbing. In 1997, Walmart opened its first store in Germany, and just like its US locations, all employees were given the company handbook.
ooh, yeah. If you're giving people country handbooks, you should make one especially for that country or state, whatever. Like you should do different handbooks for France, basically Russia, UK. All of them should have different handbooks because there's different cultures. What seems respectful, what feels comfortable for them, what colors suit. Like say you have a building that colors completely doesn't represent France or very uncommon, people are less likely to go there because it's just weird. Like you gotta put your country in the same shoes as many other smaller countries in that one country you're in are doing, so you look normal. You don't want to stand out. You want to stand out, but you don't want to stand out too much. Like a overseas franchise, you wanna like appear comfortable and like welcoming to the for the people you'll want to be in your store. That's same thing for handbooks. Like you wanna teach the people that are working for you not to do what America does, which wouldn't do good in like France, for example, if I'm wording this correctly.
Contained over 100 different rules, but in the culture section, there was one rule that took priority over everything else. Whenever a customer comes within 10 feet of you, you must look them in the eye, greet them, and ask them how you can help them. To Americans, this was considered good customer service, but to Germans, with their high uncertainty avoidance scores, shopping at Walmart was a disaster. The friendliness felt fake, the small talk intrusive.
That's the thing. You gotta make people do what's good for their culture and common for their culture. It's like let's say for USA, somebody walks up to you and bows, awkward as shit. Do you know what to do? No, you're probably coming back. No, because it's awkward as shit. You gotta do stuff that's common for their culture, man.
And constant smiling, unprofessional. Customers
Yeah.
thought, why is this stranger trying to talk to me? And in some cases, this friendliness was even misinterpreted as sexual advances. Instead of building trust, it created discomfort. And finally, after 9 years of poor sales, Walmart had to pull out of Germany.
I mean, surely they knew that was happening because of it. Like, it's pretty common sense that you gotta change your handbook and how you greet people in different countries. Like, it's just common knowledge, I would say, at that point.
Another one of Hofstede's dimensions, long-term orientation, measures how societies balance tradition with change.
Yeah.
Here, the US scores relatively low, which means Americans would generally replace old methods of doing things for newer, more efficient ones, something American companies have always been used to. Countries like the UK and Germany, however, which score much higher, tend to value long-standing traditions, established norms, and gradual change. In other words, they don't switch to new ways of doing things just because they're more.
Is that better? It's hard to say. More efficient is whatever, but like it's a same for medical advancement. I would say medical advancements is surely out of that in Europe and stuff like that. That's probably just not a part of what it is. Surely, but like if something news comes out and then European type of countries take ages to like slowly get into it, I don't think that's how it is. For trade, though, it makes sense.
efficient. And that brings us to Best Buy. In 2010, the American retail
True, a lot of the things at Best Buy is convenient stuff, same as Walmart. It's a lot of convenient stuff that does well in America because it prioritizes convenience and of old traditions that work slightly slower but traditional. So all the new stuff there just wouldn't sell because nobody wants it or cares about it. But it's just not something they're looking for.
giant tried bringing big box stores to the UK. Their pitch? Bulk shopping was way more efficient. In the UK, however, shopping in small quantities had always been the norm, and with their tendency to stick with things like they already used to, Best Buy felt unnecessary. And after years of barely any business, Best Buy had no
Build a website you love with Wix. Where your words
choice but to pack up and leave. Time and time again, American companies have struggled in Europe, not because their business models are bad, but because
It's because it doesn't match their country they're in. Like, it's just because of that. The cultural differences, what they buy compared to what they don't buy, how easy they are for change, and just like how welcoming the store is. Like the colors, how in your face it is, the technology in the store, all those matters a lot for how a store's gonna do well. And if you don't like just cater for a different country's version of it, it's gonna do pretty bad.
they kept trying to sell the American way of doing things to people who don't really care for it. It
Yeah.
simply didn't work. But that didn't mean American success in Europe was entirely impossible.
They just have to change up how they do stuff, change up what the handbook says, maybe change the color and how in your face the store is, just and change up what you sell a little bit, or just add more, or like instead of fully being American products, do a 50-50, 50% or maybe over 60% of the stuff that the country you're in likes to buy, and maybe a 40% of American stuff that's more newer, just in case some people do want it still. You gotta have a good balance between them, not 100% American when no one's gonna buy it and make it unwelcoming.
Once companies accepted that European consumer culture was fundamentally different, they stopped trying to copy and paste the American model and started building Europe-specific playbooks instead, all in
Yeah.
an effort to navigate those differences and cash in on the continent's vast consumer market. But as they quickly discovered, this was going to be easier said than done, because unlike what they were
Yeah.
used to, Europe wasn't just another market.
It was
a
completely different one, yeah. That's why, honestly, you would if you want someone to like help, you should get a manager from that country to do it. That you should hire a manager to go with you, like just a very big one to like that build stores and stuff like that. I don't know if they exist or not. I'm just like pulling this out of my ass basically to have a look at the store and see what does well and then implement that.
collection of different values, cultures, and people that had just happened to share the same continent.
Yeah.
In 1985, Domino's Pizza opened its first store in Europe, located in Bedfordshire, England. Unlike its US locations, which were mostly large restaurants, things in the UK were completely different. Brits didn't eat out nearly twice as much as Americans did, so instead of
Yeah.
opening large suburban restaurants, Domino's focused on small stores in student-packed areas that prioritized delivery over
Nice,
dining.
yeah.
And it worked. By 1999, they'd expanded to over 200 stores, and in less than a decade, that number had more than doubled. From Domino's perspective, the lesson was clear. They'd found a winning model. And for an American company, that meant one thing: scale it. You see, for decades, these companies have been trained to replicate whatever works, and it all comes down to how the US is structured. With shared language, media, and consumer expectations, the US is more or less a unified market, so a strategy that works in one part of the country will almost always work everywhere else.
Yeah.
This is why Walmart can roll out identical stores nationwide, why McDonald's sells the same menu in every state, and why Coca-Cola can use the same marketing campaign from California to Virginia. So when Domino's executives saw their delivery-first strategy take off in the UK, expanding it across Europe didn't feel risky, but instead like the next logical step. By 2012, they'd expanded to Germany, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein, and for a moment, it seemed like they'd cracked the code, up until it didn't.
Domino's Pizza is to close down all its stores in Italy.
Shut down all of its locations in Italy.
I mean, that makes sense. It's where pizza came from, so the standards of the food is insanely high. Like, plus, like, what type of pizza they sell? It's American style. They don't do Italian style margarita pizzas, the very light, less cheesy type of pizzas, stuff like that. That isn't I don't think that's very common in Italy. Like, I would say it's pretty rare. It's obviously like same as coffee. Australia has a good coffee culture. Stuff like Starbucks and have like a very strong coffee culture. Stuff like Starbucks doesn't do good here, and it didn't do good here. So it's obvious that if you're gonna make something original to the country and go to that country and sell your thing, and if it isn't at the strict standard that country has, it's gonna do bad.
Has reportedly closed its last branch
after it failed to win over Italians with its mass-produced pizzas.
In 2015, Domino's entered Italy, the birthplace of pizza, with its European playbook, making pizzas as fast as possible and delivering it to people's doorsteps. But in Italy, pizza wasn't just another meal.
It's a delicacy.
It was their culture.
Yeah.
Something that had been crafted with care and eaten straight out of an oven. Domino's, of course, ignored this. After all, its European strategy was working in other parts of the continent, so why wouldn't it work here?
It makes sense why I didn't do well, though. If a culture has their one food they've perfected over years of stuff, and you bring your American style of that thing in a very strong culture of that one food, it's gonna do poorly if you don't match the culture / the quality of what the food is there.
Just 7 years later, the company collapsed, filed for bankruptcy, and shut down all 29 locations across the country, a fraction of the nearly 800 it had once projected. This One Europe strategy isn't exactly unique to Domino's either. In the 1980s, Coors, the American beer company, successfully expanded to the UK with its Turn It Loose advertising campaign. British consumers loved it, so they scaled the campaign to Spain. But when it launched, Turn It Loose was immediately interpreted as a common Spanish expression meaning suffering from diarrhea, and just like the brand image was destroyed. Time and time again, American companies have failed in Europe because they underestimate the time, money, and commitment required to succeed there. They treat Europe like the US.
Like, if one thing's working in Europe really well, it's not guaranteed to do well of whole of Europe. It's just guaranteed to do decently in other part of Europe, not guaranteed to do good for all of them.
A collection of similar markets with minor variations. But in reality, Europe is far too diverse for this logic to work.
Yeah, there's so many cultures there.
In other words, a product that sells well, or a marketing campaign that resonates in one European country, won't necessarily work in another, even if they share a border. Many American companies have struggled to adapt to this, and even when they recognize the problem, they often choose to ignore it, because building country-specific strategies is expensive, slow, and difficult to scale. But Europe hasn't responded to this resistance with indifference. As American companies try to force their methods into European markets, Europe pushes back. And in 2024 alone, that pushback cost American companies more than $7 billion.
Jeez.
American companies dominate globally, but fail in Europe, and it's not just because of cultural misunderstandings or bad strategies. It's that their entire business models are built around a version of capitalism that just doesn't exist there.
Yeah.
In the US, capitalism has always been straightforward. For the most part, government stays out the way, creating an environment where companies can take more risks, expand more aggressively, and then take the most amount of profit possible, even though this sometimes means engaging in child labour. In Europe, however, things are a little bit different. Capitalism does still exist, but the government steps in to balance growth against other priorities like worker protections, consumer rights, fair competition, and environmental standards. And even though the amount of regulation in Europe has recently been brought under scrutiny, for American companies this causes massive issues. In 1997, when Walmart entered Germany, it did the same thing that had made it successful in the US. It leveraged its relationship with manufacturers, got massive bulk discounts, and offered customers the lowest prices on the market. In less than a month, it received an official letter from the German government: raise prices or face penalties. You see, instead of trying to...
That makes sense, though, because there is some laws in, like, America that are, like, a less version of this. If you, like, lower the prices too much, you're putting... I forgot the words called, it's actual law. If you lower your prices too much, it can put other companies out of business, where you basically make no profit, and that's, like... I forgot what that's called. It's like a monopoly over stuff, and you're not allowed to do that.
Pete, German retailers simply reported Walmart to the authorities for selling products below cost. Walmart executives, who'd built their entire business on being able to offer the lowest prices, were left confused. To them, this was just competition, but in Germany, it was a violation of fair competition laws. And complying didn't mean tweaking a few policies, it meant stripping away the very thing that made Walmart, Walmart, its competitive pricing.
Yeah.
After 9 years of struggling, it sold off all its stores, exiting
No, selling off all your stores because just make your prices up a little bit more. Like, you can still have lower prices, just make them less lower. Like, do it like $1 less. I doubt I doubt they'll start reporting you if you're slightly less expensive than they are. Like, if you make yourself slightly less expensive and just have something plus their prices, just having more variety, for example, focus on having a lot of things instead of having insanely low prices. Like, I feel like that could work decently as well. Just have the lower end prices compared to others, just not insanely lower, and make sure you have it almost like an everything store.
with nearly $1 billion in losses. For decades, American companies have built their
Or you could do one of this chat and just give out coupons a shit ton. Do like give out sale coupons that if they do it and they buy something, they get an insane sale. I don't think that's illegal if you do sale stuff like that. We give out coupons.
entire business
Not too sure
models
though.
without strict regulations, controlling what they can and can't do. This has led to a situation whereby when said regulations are introduced, their entire business model falls apart.
Yeah.
With labour laws that protect employees, Amazon can't cycle through workers to maintain a consistently motivate does in the US. And with privacy laws that protect people's data, Meta can't bombard Europeans with targeted ads, its main revenue source. And with competition laws that protect smaller businesses, Walmart can't operate efficiently in Europe. And it's not just that these regulations exist, it's that they're actually enforced. Something American companies are all but used to. In 2023 alone, Meta was fined over $1 billion for violating privacy laws. Apple, $500 million.
No, it's valid. No, it's valid. You shouldn't be able to break privacy laws. You should get heavily punished for breaking privacy laws, bro. You can't just yoink some people's data that you promise you won't yoink the data and get nothing, like a slap on the wrist, basically. You should get fined that amount of money. Any company that promises privacy then sells your data should get $1 billion fine. Like, it's what they deserve.
Competitive practices, and Intel over $400 million for abusing its market position.
Yeah.
In fact, Alphabet, Google's parent company, has been fined so many times by the EU that it now has a dedicated section for these fines in the balance sheet. In the US, however, companies barely get punished for things like this. No fines, no breakups, no consequences. Where American capitalism rewards whoever can grow the fastest, European capitalism balances growth with social welfare.
Yeah.
And while this means European companies are often less dominant than their American counterparts, that's always been the plan. It's about confronting the fact that their entire business model, the strategies, the tactics, and the competitive advantages that made them successful, was designed for a version of capitalism that simply doesn't exist in Europe. And adapting would require becoming a fundamentally different company, which for most of them just
isn't worth it, yeah.
For decades, American companies have thrived on a simple formula, finding out what works and scaling it no matter.
Like, it's pretty much this basically for a lot of companies, I feel. They try to do it. If they see what's wrong with it and it's a big problem that will require them to basically change their whole store, like, you can't do it basically. You might as well just not do that. You can do it to, like, other countries. No, that's true. You could do it to other, like, countries and stuff like that, but, like, you should give up on some countries or, like, have a smaller version of it and just hand it off to someone else.
Things have always operated on a different logic, one where cultural nuances matter, where stability is valued over disruption, and where regulations exist, not to slow down businesses, but to protect the people those businesses serve.
Makes sense.
So for American companies to succeed in Europe, they must be willing to put in the work, because at the end of the day, Europe isn't a single market waiting to be conquered. It's a dozen different markets, each with its own language, culture, and way of doing business.
Yeah.
And until American companies truly accept that, they'll keep making the same billion-dollar mistakes for years to come.
Well, that's the end of this video. If you do enjoy videos like this, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below what video I'm react to next time. I should soon be able to come out with a Discord server where you can link those videos, so look out for that soon enough, maybe in a day or two. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time.